Hello and welcome. So in this video we're going to have a look at this, which is the Vango Banshee Pro 200 Trek. Now I've had this tent for coming on 3 years now, and full disclosure, I'm a big fan. It does have its faults, it does have its limitations, but I like this tent. I've used it often, and it's kept me safe in some really nasty weather. I've camped in this tent in some horrendous weather, and I've been safe and warm all the times I've done it. So for that reason alone, I'm a big fan of this tent, because it stood up to 50-60 mile an hour winds, and I've not felt nervous. I've not felt like I'm going to take off and fly off the side of a hill. This has kept me safe. It's kept me alive. So I've got a soft spot for it. That being said, as I say, it does have faults, and I'll try and point out them in as fair a way as possible. But first off, let's look at how to pitch this tent. Okay, so in the bag, the Banshee weighs 2.39 kilos, and they say on the website that you can pitch this in 7 minutes. Now, sometimes these websites are a little bit optimistic, but I think that is actually pretty accurate, because I have pitched this in all kinds of weather conditions and it's never taken me very long. Sometimes they fart about with it a little bit just to try and get the pitch right if you're on uneven ground, but your basic pitch of this should take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes in my opinion. And the pack size, it's not the smallest thing in the world. They say this is 46 by about 17 centimeters, which it's roughly right, I suppose. It is a big old thing, relatively speaking, but the good thing about this is you get this oversized bag. So when I get this out, you'll see that this bag opens right up, so when you go to pack this tent away, you just have a massive bag open and you just stuff it in and draw it shut, and that's it. So packing this tent away is really quick. So let's just get on and pitch it, shall we? Now for today's demonstration, I've got a footprint. I bought this footprint for this tent. I can't remember how much footprints are. They're not necessary, but it's been raining. The ground in my garden is wet and muddy and awful, and I'm going to pack this tent away shortly, so I'm just going to put the ground sheet down to protect the bottom of my tent, so I can put it away without having to wait for anything to dry. And the ground sheet is obviously the same shape as the tent, which is that kind of coffin style, for want of a better word. This oversized bag I think is a great idea. So you just unpopper these and pull that drawstring open, and look at the size of the entrance of that. I've had some tents and they're so difficult to get back in their bag, but I think it's one of the key features of this is it's so easy to pack away. And let's face it, packing away is probably the worst part of camping. This is an all-in-one pitch. And I've left it open last time I used it and left the door. Oh dear, left the doors propped open and everything, so just close the doors up. Yeah, so all-in-one pitch. You find the front, you find the back, and you just lay it out where you want it. That's about right. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just to kind of simulate, real conditions. What I would normally do with this is I would normally peg the front and the back so it doesn't blow away. And only roughly, nothing silly. Next we're going to take the poles, and again, Vango have made this simple. The poles are 2 different sizes, and it's very easy to tell what goes where. And these are what do they call them? Like pre-bent poles, as it were, pre-shaped, should we say? So, you can see that is already in the shape of the tent, so you haven't got to fiddle about with anything Everything is colour coded, you know, as if you didn't need to know that this is the larger one, but the larger one is blue and the smaller one is whatever colour that is. Orange, tan, brass. If you look here, you know, we've got a matching blue label to go with our blue pole, and you just shove that through. The what do they call it? The this part that the pole goes through is on the outside of the tent, so the frame of the tent is on the outside, not on the inside, taking up space. You go through, match up the blue next to the blue, and that's in place. Drop that down and move on to the small end, the foot end of the tent, and this has got these let's call it brass coloured markers. Shove that through the hole. Again, it's on the outside. Match up the brass bit with the brass bit, and that's it. So poles are in place, and then got these nice convenient holes, and that is where the foot of the peg, the foot of the pole goes. And go around to the other side. Just pop the other one in its place, and that immediately then forms the shape of the foot end of your tent. And you've got the same system for the larger pole. Just push that up, find where it goes, and all of these, you know, this part of the tent is part of its, what they call its sort of inner frame, so they're all joined. Right in its hole, and that's it. Job done for a minute. And then I'm going to re-peg the ends properly, pull them out nice and tight. And this larger end has a third one. Just to get this bit out nice and tight. Straighten the poles, and we'll do the other end. And just go onto the pole. That just puffs us out, and then we got the guy line to attach in a minute. The other side, pull that out. There we go. Right, and then it's just put the guy lines out. Tighten them up. They've got these nice locking systems on there. You know, easy to use. The side ones. And the front ones. The guy line's just got a little loop on the end. Put the peg through and peg them out. That is it pitched, and even with moving a camera around and, you know, messing about, it still only took me 5-10 minutes. It's such an easy thing to pitch. I'll take you around the outside first, and then we'll look inside. So this material is ripstop nylon, and it has a 5,000mm hydrostatic head rating. To add to the waterproofing, you know, on the zip section we got this little guttering system here, which will push rainwater either side there above where the zip is, and the zip is covered. All the seams themselves are double stitched, and they're all seam sealed. We've got an air vent under here, same this side, and we've got the same gutter system here this side as well, just to keep the rainwater off the zippered area. And you've got another window here, or another air vent here, and they've got these little hardened bits to hold them open. And as I said during pitching, you know, the frame of the tent is on the outside, which gives you a bit more room inside. These poles are what you call Yunnan Eco poles. They're lightweight, pre-angled, and they're made with acid-free processing. And the Gumph says they provide strong stability in bad weather, and I can testify to that. The guy lines, you can see they're green, but in the night time they all shine up because they're made of a reflective material. And size wise, this tent is 2.65 meters in length, 1.75 meters in width, and it's 100 centimeters high. Now they build this as a two-man tent. I would be inclined to disagree. I think it's a one-man tent, and quite a small one at that, but it certainly makes up for its size in its durability, because I really rate this as a bad weather tent. Okay, so let's have a look inside then, shall we? So you can roll up the door, and you can roll up both doors, which we will do so we can have a good look. And they roll up, you know, nicely, and they're out the way. Okay, right, I am in. So as you can see, you know, height-wise, this tent does lack a little. I can sit in this middle bit, and my head is kind of touching the ceiling, which is not ideal, and I'm only 5'8". So that, to me, is one of its downfalls, is that you can't sit upright. So this is marketed, as I said before, as a two-man tent, and if I'm laying here on my side, you could get another person laying on this side next to me, but there is no way I would share this tent unless, you know, my camping partner had a problem with their tent and it was a life or death situation. But I would never choose to share this as a two-man tent. This to me is always a one-man tent. Dimensions inside, lengthwise, it's fine. You know, my feet are at the end, and you know, there's a half a foot or a foot above my head. That being said, when you lay down, when you've got a sleeping pad and a pillow and you're in a sleeping bag, you know, it does lift you up off the ground, which means this end part of the tent tends to flap down onto your head, you know, which is easily remedied. I mean, I have, you know, various bits and pieces. I always carry a tripod if I'm filming, so I'll lean the tripod in the corner and that pushes that back bit up. But it is a bit of a design flaw. And you've got a vestibule both sides, which is probably, I'd say, about a foot wide here, and it tapers down at the foot end. But there's enough room this side to slide a decent sized backpack, and you keep your shoes here as well, and your cook kit the other side. So, you know, there is enough room to do stuff in here. You've got the additional door at the end of the tent, at the head end, where you can, I think you're supposed to keep your shoes out there. And it's got the inner fly as well as a fly mesh, so if it is a warm day, you know, you can have one open and keep the bugs out, or you can have them both open, and as I say, you can get your shoes out there and get them out the way. So I say, overall, you know, as I've said, overall I do have a soft spot for this tent. It has served me well, but the drawbacks are space related, you know, not having the ability to sit upright like this. I mean, it's not short of it, you know, it's not short of it by much. It's just that little bit where it's constantly on your head can be annoying. So once you're in it, you're essentially laying down or slouching, and if it's a wet day, and you're stuck in it for hours, that can be a bit tiresome. I've had problems with this when I'm cooking in that vestibule because it is quite small, and I don't want, you know, the outer part of the tent to flap in and hit my stove and, you know, cause a fire. So that has been a worry for me, that the vestibule areas are not quite big enough to do anything major. They're all right for I don't know, a little trangier or something, or a tiny little gas stove, but if you're bringing something with little solid fuel blocks or a big jet boil, you know, it does feel a little bit unsafe because it's such a small area to be operating in. And further to the negative side, you know, it is quite heavy and it is quite large, but I think it's a sort of a good beginner's tent. You know, as a beginner myself, when I bought it, I couldn't have been happier with it. I thought it was great, and I still think it's great, but I've just learnt there are things with it that irritate me. But on the positive side, you know, very quick to pitch, very, very quick to take down again, really reliable in bad weather, comfortable enough, big enough for one. There's no way I'd call this a two-man tent. I think you can get the Banshee 300, which is a three-man tent, which I think is more like a two-man tent. But it's the same with all tents. Any two-man tent, really, you look at them, it's two people laying side by side, not moving. That's fine, as long as you don't mind your shoulders touching. But if you want any kind of comfort, a two-man tent is for one person. These tents cost, I think, around £150 from Blacks and places like that. So they're not super cheap, but you are getting what you pay for in terms of strength and reliability. So I think 150 is reasonably fair. I would trust this tent in any weather conditions. So there you go. But yeah, that is the Vango Banshee Pro 200 Trek, and it's a great little tent. I like it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this video has been helpful. If you could give it a thumbs up, that would really help. But if you're thinking of buying this tent, then you know you're not going to go far wrong. It'll look after you. So yeah, happy camping. See you soon.